Watch live waiting. It says we're waiting. I guess. Let me refresh this screen. I'm on another. I'll share my screen in a minute. Or you can, go find it. It's not started yet. I thought we could sit here and wait together. Shush, my sweet. I'm hungry. I didn't have breakfast. I had a coffee, but I had no breakfast. Sweetie pie, you want to come say hi to my friends? She's being sweet right now. She was mean to me this morning when I fed her, but now she's being nice. You want to come with mommy and say hi to my friends? Let's see if she's going to be in a good mood. Say hi to my friends. We're going to watch today. Uh-oh. Oh, baby girl, she started crying. Such a naughty girl. Let me go on. Let me go. Oh, let's turn that off. All right. So here's the thing. So the Kaitlyn Armstrong child. I'm hearing all kinds of noises. Hello, everyone. Who's there? Nobody. 0 people. Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to be watching the Kaitlyn Armstrong. Here's the one if you want to go directly, here's the link to the live stream that I'm going to be watching. So you could watch directly on the live stream. I left the door open. I may close it because it's noisy back there. Some of you are. So if you want to watch the live stream directly, there you have it. I might go watch over there myself since I'm kind of empty here, but I thought I would discuss what's been going on. So the defense basically called a few witnesses and closed. Like it wasn't even a day long, the defense, because there is no defense. There is no defense. The only thing they could do is try to get her off on a technicality. So so I'm going to wait. We're waiting for the closing arguments, which will be live streamed. I just found out yesterday that, because after I did the update yesterday, I followed up and I saw that there was more information because the trial was still going on. But I didn't expect the defense to rest. Basically, the defense came on in the afternoon, called a few witnesses, and they rested. There was nothing. They really just want to implant reasonable doubt, which I don't see how there can be any reasonable doubt. And Kaitlyn Armstrong didn't even testify. When the defendant doesn't testify, it doesn't always mean that they're guilty. Maybe it's just this, maybe because there's enough reasonable doubt, they decide, well, don't call because sometimes even if the defendant is innocent, they might mess up the reasonable doubt. But many times it's because they're guilty and they're only going to stick their foot in their mouth if they get called onto the stand. So, but so that's basically what we're doing. And now over in Texas, it's only an hour earlier. So it's 9:30 in Texas. Maybe they come on they're supposed to be coming on. They're probably going to come on when they can. But I see more activity over there I'm going to share the screen. So I'm going to be chatting over there in the live. And if no people come on here, then I'm just going to end this and go over to the live stream over there. All right, so let's share my screen. Because some of you, I usually come on in the afternoons. Some of you may be not available in the morning. Share screen. Yeah, I'm not going to have many people here. So what I'll do is, yeah, I don't have anyone here. See, I'm going to be on this channel. And I put the link there in the chat. So I guess I'll be watching it live over there. Because I have no one on my channel. I have oh, there's one person. Hello. I'm thinking, if I don't get, at least a few people on this channel, I don't want to call it a watch party because that's kind of morbid. I mean, a woman is going to jail the rest of her life, so it's not something to celebrate. I mean, yeah, she did commit murder if she's found guilty, but it's not a party. But a watch group, a watch, what would we call it? I was going to have like the equivalent of a watch party for the closing arguments of the Kaitlyn Armstrong trial. But I'm hi there, Eloise. I don't recognize your name. I usually come on in the afternoons. So what we're doing is the closing arguments today for the Kaitlyn Armstrong trial. So if I don't get a lot of people on here, I may just go on over directly to what I have on my screen here. I put the link in there, but if you just came in, you may not have seen the link. So this is the one I'm watching. And they're going to be live streaming the closing arguments. And then the jury will have to, go deliberate. And I assume they'll be back with a verdict today. I don't think it's going to take very long. I think the lady is very, well, of course, I'm not on the jury, but I think the lady is guilty. I mean, how could she not be? I just see no way. And there's not even reasonable doubt. I mean, you'd have to be really stretching it for it not to be her. So do you know anything about the trial, Eloise, or did you just stumble upon it right now? My channel. If you feel like chatting. If not, we'll see. We'll see if more people come on. But I don't know when this is going to start. I'm so excited. I want to hear the closing arguments. And I want to get something to eat. I haven't had breakfast. So while I don't want to leave you guys alone, I like to be the host. I do need to get my breakfast. This is my dog, Penny Lou, if you're new. She's disabled. She has hydrocephaly. She has a Jekyll and Hyde personality, which I think in part is because of her condition and in part because I've spoiled her rotten. Yeah, that's what I said. Yes, you are. So she's dangerous. She bites out of the blue. Sometimes she just gets angry and she snaps. And if you're in the way, she bites. So this is what I've chosen to live with. Like for like a very brief minute, I considered having her put to sleep because when she gets Miss Dr. Jekyll, Ms. Hyde, when she becomes Ms. Hyde, she's very dangerous. But since she only weighs 6 pounds, I figure, okay, when she's Ms. Hyde, I just have to put her in her pen, wait for her to calm down. She's on medication. Generally, she gets grumpy. See how she cringes? That's all part of her oversensitive nerves or whatever. What was I saying? She, yeah, when she becomes Miss High, she's very dangerous. It's usually around food where she gets aggressive. Like around food time, either she's hungry. Oh, you watched the ASMR one. Oh, thank you. Oh, since you were little. Yeah, I don't do ASMR anymore because I'm actually not very, I'm good at it when I'm concentrating, but I have trouble concentrating on it. And then I forget. That was part of the reason I opened this channel because people were saying, oh, you got a little loud there, because I would forget I was doing ASMR and I would start laughing or whatever and mess it all up. And it's just it's difficult for me to be soft-spoken. It takes an effort. And I thought, oh, this could be therapeutic. I could try to be ASMR and do soft-spoken. But it's a lot of it. It's a very, very much of an effort. Too much of an effort for me to feel it's pleasant to do. You know, some people who are naturally soft spoken, like the queen of ASMR, gentle whispering. You know, you can tell that's natural to her. She just talks and it's just very, but it's not natural to me. So I've been thinking of doing some gum snapping or whatever, but right now I'm just not inspired to do it. But I do like this channel, and I have very few followers on this channel. But the ones who are here just don't care what I do. You know, that's kind of part of the reason. Because I do like doing videos, but I don't like making too much of an effort. And then I had a sewing channel. That was where I first started. I had a sewing channel. I still have it, but I don't post on it anymore. I might go back to doing those, and I'll try to make the videos soft spoken as I'm doing them. You know, I might do that. Or maybe I could do gum snapping sewing on the ASMR channel. I don't know. And then get a bunch of gum snapping ASMR followers that way. Anyway, so you on the ASMR channel may not know about Penny Lou. I adopted her in June 23. She was born in March 2022. So I adopted her June 2022. Right? I guess so. It's been that long, honey? You've been with me that long? Oh, I didn't realize how fast time flies. So she'll be 2 in March. And I didn't know she was going to be a Jekyll Hyde dog, but, you know, now I have her. So anyway, I'm going to go have breakfast. I mean, I'll go make something. I'll try to come back. I don't want to just leave this hanging. But I'm basically just waiting for these closing arguments to start. Let's see. And, you know, there's people chatting over there if you get bored over here on the link I just posted. And then when they start, if you want to flip back and forth, maybe that'll be a thing. I might do that. Oh, isn't she? She's very sweet. She's sweet right now. But you should see her when she's eating. She's food aggressive. She bites. She bit me one time she's bitten me several times, but one time very seriously. Usually it's I get out of the way in time. And but yeah, it's always been in relation to food. Either she's eating, or when she's hungry, she starts attacking. She attacks my feet. Now, she should know her schedule, but yeah, when she's sweet, she's really sweet. And actually, she does kind of keep me speaking softer, because if I start to speak too loud, she gets kind of upset. She starts to bark and get nervous, so that helps. Anyway, so let me go. I'm going to go get something. I'm really hungry. Maybe I'll toast a English muffin or something and make another coffee. I already had a coffee. I don't need another one with my, nervousness, but I'll have another coffee. And I'll be back and see if anyone else comes on. I should put like a message on there. I'll be right back. But if you get bored while you're waiting, go to the other, the one that's on my screen. You can go directly to them. They're, well, you can see it there. I wonder if I could do share full screen or something. Wait a minute. Let me see. How do I do that? Remove. Then I can add. Oh, okay. Hang on. Can I change it here? Oh, there's no way to change it once it's there. I have to unshare and start over. So I have to go present, share screen. I'm in StreamYard. Entire screen. There we go. How about that? Does that make it bigger? Okay, so I'm going to put this on. Oh, I see. There we go. So that's the one. All right, I'm going to go while you're watching that. I hope they don't start without me, but I'll hear them if they start. I'm going to refresh that screen, though, and just make sure. Oopsie. All right, let me put her on the floor. See, she started growling. See? See? She's being a bad girl. She started growling. Spoiled brat. Don't attack me. Don't attack me. Don't attack me. Don't attack. Don't attack your mommy. All right. I got to put on my protective rubber shoes. Okay. I can have these. Actually, it might end up doing ASMR while we're waiting. If you like eating, because I think while I'm waiting for my toast, I have some of these. I'm really hungry. Hungry. Let me go back to the chat. Anyone else? Still one person. Mm. Okay. I should bring my phone so I can watch the chat at the same time. If I make this big, oh, hide that. Can I make that full screen? Okay. That's what I'll do. I'll leave that on there, but then I'll look at the chat on my phone. have to be careful. Don't you have to attacking me? Stop. Because I just gave her a little treat. So somehow she's connected food with attacking people. I'm working with a trainer now. I signed her up for 4 classes, and he's given me some tips on how to make her not so food aggressive, but I it's just it's hard. But anyway, I'm trying. I just know to be careful, but it's dangerous. My mother's developed dementia. If you've known me since you were 9, a lot of things have happened in my life since. But one thing that's developed, my mother developed dementia over the past year or two. You know, it started off slowly and now is, so she doesn't remember anything. We tell her, be careful, the dog is dangerous. She, you know, especially around food, don't feed her. We tell her, my mother, oh, I'm going to give the puppy some food. You know, so we have to be constantly watching. And now they're up north. My parents went for Thanksgiving, and I'll be going up there for Thanksgiving. And I'll take the dog with me, but yeah, she can't be left alone. So it's hard. Hi, Owen. So we're waiting. We're waiting for the closing arguments. I'm going to put the screen. Let me remove that. Remove. And I'm going to put it on the screen that we're actually waiting for. Or I could play some fun videos to watch since, or some updates maybe on the trial. Has dementia. It's really tough. Yeah, she's not the same person. I never got along with my mother. That we always fought since I was a little girl. We just never got along. We love, you know, you can love someone and not get along with, especially if it's a parent. But we're constantly butting heads my whole life. And now I'm the one who seems to be more, you know, the caretaker. And, you know, I kind of see her as a little girl now. You know, she needs taking care of. Like she saw me as a little girl all these years. Now it's kind of like we reversed roles a little bit. But you know, I have to get over you know, there's all this psychological stuff that goes on. But so what I want to do is watch live. So we want to see that one. So I'll put that on. So that's the one we're watching, but you could still see me. Then I can't see the chat with you guys. So yeah. Anyway, if you want to go to it directly, I guess you can if you have trouble seeing it clearly. But you don't need to see as much as it's good to yeah, and that way I could see the chat at the same time. So that'll work, because on the phone I can only see or Twitch or YouTube. And I think most of the people on here are from YouTube, but I have a couple of Twitchers too. So with StreamYard, I Twitch to both. I stream to both. We could watch some funny videos. I like watching, what's her name? Yuri Lambasella. She does imitation, Kardashian imitation. Oh, but here's the other thing. If I stream what I'm watching, sometimes I get a copyright thing. Check. So we can't have watch parties sometime. Like I say, oh, let's have a watch party and watch some movie. But then I don't know how YouTube can tell, but it can tell that I'm playing some copyrighted material, and they block it so my viewers can't watch with me. So it has to be something that doesn't have any kind of royalties attached to it or something. You know, I might start playing episodes of The Cosby Show on here. Forget about who wrote The Cosby Show, all that stuff, and the name, The Cosby Show. Maybe they should change the name. But the show is excellent. And I encourage people all the time. I say, watch The Cosby Show, learn from it, tell everyone else to watch it. I don't care about you know, we know a lot of artists, a lot of creative people in history have done bad things or have been bad people. But they've created good things. One, if you like classical music, I'm not really into it, but I like a few things. There's a classical musician, a classical music creator. He was called Wagner. And he was extremely anti-Semitic. He hated Jews with a passion. But supposedly, to people in the classical music world, the music he's created is some of the best in ever, you know, in history, the best classical music. It's just You know, I don't, like I said, I'm not into classical music, so I don't know. But let me see what the guy's name is. As long as I may as well educate myself. But he was very openly anti-Semitic, hated Jewish people, was not made no secret about it. What was his name? Wagner. That's like spelled Wagner. Classical. I'm wearing my contacts in both eyes. Classical music. Classical music. But does that mean you stop listening to the music? He didn't do anything horrible, but he said, he verbalized Richard Wagner. When Richard Wagner was a German composer, he was a German composer, theater director, polemicist, which is someone who's very controversial, and conductor. He conducted classical orchestra, who is chiefly known for his operas. Unlike most composers, Wagner wrote both the libretto and the... See, I don't understand anything about classical music, but apparently this is important. The master of musical drama, Richard. So my point is, for people who know about classical music, he was just amazing. And you can even Google Richard Wagner anti-Semitic. Let's look that up. Because my mother liked classical music. Richard Wagner anti-Semitism. I hope I got the right guy. I might be. Richard, German composer, anti-Semitism. Yeah. So Richard Wagner, let's read about his anti-Semitism now. So already established he's this amazing composer. Then listen to the article, 2 minutes. That Wagner harbored anti-Semitic sentiments is both well known and uncontested, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's terrible. He hated Jewish people just because he was anti-Semitic and racist or whatever. Not racist, I don't think it's, but but he was an excellent composer, like beyond, apparently like amazing. So A Night on Bald Mountain. Okay, for example. Yeah, Owen knows stuff. I think you're about my age, Owen, so you might know stuff, more stuff than some of the younger. Yes, so I'm not going to dispute. I don't like classical music that much. Yeah, a few things I've heard. So I kind of, but same thing with Cosby, same thing with Roman Polanski. They did horrible things. They didn't murder anyone, but, pretty bad. Roman Polanski's on the same level as Bill Cosby as far as what they did. And I'd say Roman Polanski even worse. That's my personal view. And you can find out what they did. But what they have created is excellent stuff. So watch the Cosby Show. I mean, that's what I'd say. Now, some of my friends said, that's the thing that made me mad about some of my friends. They loved the Cosby Show growing up. We all watched it. We knew it was funny. And now in hindsight, now that we're older, we realize the importance it has to the educational, Black history, intersectional feminism. It touches on a lot of topics and he teaches them through a funny sitcom. I mean, it's genius. It's genius. That's as far as I can leave. And, now my friend's saying, oh, it wasn't such a great show. Yes, it is. It continues to be the best show. I would say the number one best show in history as far as that genre, if you want to give it a genre, in Black sitcoms. And even in sitcoms, not even just Black, in sitcoms, he educated while made us laugh. Two things at the same time. And sociology, you don't even realize you're learning as you're watching it. And anyway, I think Bill Cosby is a genius. He's also a rapist. I'm not going to, just like Wagner is a genius in what he did, and also was anti-Semitic, and Roman Polanski is a rapist of little girls and also was a Oscar-winning, whatever. But the difference, let's not get into it. Let's leave it at that. But so my point is, maybe I will start showing the Cosby Show on my channel if I don't get copyright infringement warnings. You can find it on different parts of the internet. It's on there for free. So anyway, the Cosby Show is very good. That's why it was so shocking when Bill was charged with. Yeah, but that's the point. One has nothing to do with the other. Yes, he did what he did, you know, but that doesn't take away that what he created is a masterpiece of a genius. And you know, and the importance it holds for the African American community, especially, you know, if we cancel the Cosby Show, it's a work of, yeah, unfortunately it will always have that little stigma, just like Wagner will always have the stigma that he was anti-Semitic. But as time goes on, we care less, you know, generations to come. The Cosby Show holds of extreme value for American history and African Americans in particular, to hold pride, hold examples. Anyway, plus the other actors, the actors on there. Anyway, I don't want to go too deeply into it, but you need to learn to separate the art from the artist. And if the art is good, you know, unless, you know, maybe they were, I don't know. There could be some exceptions, but if we're going to be applauding and giving Oscars to Roman Polanski, even after we know what he did, and he served his time, oh well, he served his time. No, you still don't forgive him because he served his time for one case. And the other cases, the girls that were too scared to talk, he didn't do that just one time to one person. He's done that a few times. Some women have spoken up since. That, yeah, when I was a little girl, he did this to me, you know, and, you know, no proof, never went to trial. But you don't do things like that once. He got away with it more times, and, you know, the one time he ended up going to jail for it. So, and but he won an Oscar even after that all. So yeah, and Bill Cosby also did A Different World and Fat Albert. Anyway, that wasn't what I was supposed to be the topic of this program, but I'm just killing time until this darn, I can't wait. What is taking so long? I gotta wait it's 11 o'clock. That means it's 10 o'clock in Texas. So what is taking so long? They should be starting. Come on. We got a schedule. So just waiting for them to start. Legally not vandalism. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm missing all this chat. Wait a minute. Okay, so your great-granddad had dementia. Yeah. The Cosby Show is very good. That's why it was so shocking. Yeah, it was shocking. Yeah, we loved Bill Cosby. And I sadly, I still love him only because of what he meant to my childhood. You know, I grew up with Fat Albert and then the Cosby Show when I was a teen. But wait, what am I missing here? I can't see the chat. Jimmy Savile, for example, in the UK, when what he did came out, everything down to his gravestone was destroyed, and as it should have been, in your opinion. Okay, I don't know who Jimmy Savile is. I'm going to Google him now because I don't know who he is. You think it should have been destroyed, even his works, legally not vandalism. Okay, hang on. Let me see. Yeah, I don't. I think if what he created was excellent, then yeah, don't exalt the man, but his work. But let me see, Jimmy Savile. I don't know who he is. Jimmy Savile, English media personality. Oh, a comedian maybe. Hosted BBC shows Top of the Pops and Jim will Fix It. Bodies. Was he a comedian? A British Horror Story. Oh, I'm going to have to watch that. Oh, wow. Okay, if he was a comedian, sexual abuse, yeah. It emerged in late 2012 that Jimmy Savile, an English media personality who had died the previous year, sexually abused hundreds of people. Oh, my goodness. Most of them children. Okay, but did he... Well, okay, so what he was a comedian... generally respected for his charitable work. Yeah, which is associated with him. Yeah, that's the other thing. When they've given to charity, I'll look more into Jimmy Seville. Yeah, it sounds like he did some horrible things. Um, when someone who has
Do you know who you are?
starting,
You need to have an abundance mindset. He was
let
born
me know if you hear an echo.
He is baked and ready to come out.
I'm gonna look into Jimmy Seville. That's interesting.
Let's go big or go home. It's
So
our
that's a
time.
commercial.
We go on a tour, recorded EP.
Oh, skip.
Your charge talks about all the evidence comes from here. This is your shrinking violet. This is what the evidence showed you who she really is.
Shh. Quiet.
January 12th.
Quiet.
4 months
I'm sorry.
before Mo Wilson was killed and taken from us.
If I mute my mic, can you hear it?
I also told you in opening statements, and I used my hands, that the last thing that Mo Wilson did on this earth on May 11th, 2022 at 9:15 p.m. was scream in terror. And that evidence came from Mr. Donald's audio from his camera, G4 camera, from this witness stand. I was true to my word. I brought that evidence to you. And I also told you on that tape, heard 2 shots. And there was a 4 or 5 second pause. I told you in opening, and I presented it to you pursuant to paragraph 12, evidence from the witness stand, that she stood over her. This young lady over here, the defendant Kaitlyn Armstrong, I told her she stood over her after she shot her in the head twice and put another bullet right in her heart. You heard Dr. DeRusi, the ME. That third bullet was right in her heart. And she also testified that because of the exit wound, she was up against something. I submit to you, she was up against the floor. 2 to the head, and she was laying on the floor, probably already dead. And for good measure, the defendant walked up to her and put another bullet right in her heart. And I also told you that 19 days before this trial, she escaped from the sheriff's department. Now, I'm going to tell you the irony of this. We picked this jury on October 30th. We started our evidence on November the 1st, Dia de las Muertas, the Day of the Dead, November the 1st. It's a day that the Mexican-American culture celebrate those who have gone before them. We started this evidence on the Day of the Dead. So you see from this video here, you see her? She's not just running from the sheriff's department. No, sir. That's 19 days before this trial. She's running from you and you and you and you and you and you and you, and she's running from all of you on the back row because you are a jury of her peers. Everybody deserves their day in court, and she got hers. And you can see from this video, she didn't want to face you. Now, the offense charge in this case is murder. We're going to go over this really quick because it's in your charge. Murder. These are the elements that we have to prove to you. That the defendant intentionally or knowingly caused the death of an individual or intends to cause serious bodily injury and commits an act clearly dangerous to human life, that causes the death of an individual. Two ways to commit it. A person's intentionally or knowingly cause the death of an individual. Intentionally, it gives you a definition. A person acts intentionally or with intent with respect to a result of her conduct when it is her conscious objective to cause the result. Or you can go on the second part, which is knowingly. A person acts knowingly or with knowledge with respect to a result of her conduct when that her conduct is reasonably certain to cause the result. It even defines an individual. Individual means a human being who is alive. It defines serious bodily injury. Bodily injury that causes a substantial risk of death or that causes death, serious permanent disfigurement, or protracted loss. And it even defines a firearm. A firearm means any device designed, made, or adapted to expel a projectile through a barrel by using the energy generated by an explosion or burning substance or any device readily convertible to that use. Now, unanimity. What that means is this. You need to be unanimous that the defendant committed murder. You do not need to be unanimous on what theory you use if for some reason you don't have the same theory. Some can believe that it was intentional, some can believe that it's knowingly, and some can believe that she just committed an act clearly dangerous to human life. As long as you all believe that the defendant on May 11th caused the death of Anna Mariah Wilson. So, this is what the state has to prove right here. On or about May 11th. I think we're getting a lot of evidence about what day it happened. In Travis County, Texas. We talked about through the detectives that this happened in Travis County. That the defendant, Kaitlyn Armstrong, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Anna Mariah Wilson or intended to cause serious bodily injury and committed an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death of Anna Mariah Wilson with the firearm. I believe the state has met that burden. I think we've proved all them elements, and I believe we have proved them beyond a reasonable doubt. So, if you remember, doing an opening statement, the defense showed you a little mountain we had to climb. I'll submit to you that pursuant to paragraph 12, through those 40 witnesses, we climbed this mountain. Never seen so much evidence in my life against one person. Now, the purpose of this is to relate to Steve Aston, the ballistics tool mark expert, who, by the way, testified that he's never had issue with proficiency tests. And they asked him 3 different times. So you never made a mistake? No. So you never made a mistake? No. So you never made a mistake? No. Now, if you allege that he made a mistake, guess what? Pursuant to paragraph 12, no evidence that he made a mistake came from that witness chair. In fact, you heard 3 hours of testimony from Mr. Tobin. And at the end of 3.5 hours, he said, and I quote from Mr. Gonzalez, "No, I'm not here. My life will never get back." I said, not my words. It may be funny, but those are his words. I'm not here to contest his finding or to say that it's not a match. Now, they asked Steve Aston several times, why did you not exclude all other guns in the world? No one else in the world had a 6-hour P365 and left their DNA at the scene. Nobody else in the world fit that description. No one else in the world was angry that their boyfriend was out with Mo Wilson. Just her. No one else in the world had their Jeep circling 1708B Maple for an hour before you heard that 915 shot. No one else in the world matched that description. That's what you do when you got nothing. You pick on the detective and you talk to him about where you didn't look. Not the mountain of evidence that we have. You try to distract you from that. And finally, no one else in the world left the scene of the murder in Kaitlyn Armstrong's Jeep that was parked in that alley from 8:40 p.m., 2 minutes after the murder. We don't need no one else in the world to make these facts that came from that chair true. These are not my words. These are facts that came from the witness chair. No one else in the world fits this criteria. So that, did you check every gun in the world? That's called a rabbit hole they want you to go down. Only Kaitlyn Armstrong, the defendant, fits these facts that was presented to you through that witness chair. Now, let's talk about her best friends, one of them. One of them says she's a friend, one of them says she's a best friend. She told Jacqueline Chastain about the gun a month after it was purchased. Nicole Mertz said, I've never seen her that upset before, and that's why I remember. Never seen her that upset before. These are her friends. We called them, but they were her friends. You heard them. Don't let anybody recharacterize a relationship. Those two ladies got on the stands and said, we are her friends. And one of them said, she's my best friend. And we know Kaitlyn called Mo Wilson to confront her about Kate. We know that from the cell phone records. Now, we don't know exactly what she said. So I'm not going to put that out there. But we know she called her. And we know Colin texted her and said, WTF. And we all know what that means. And what's even more chilling is that when the defendant's two best friends heard that Mo Wilson was dead, they called the police unsolicited. And they said, you better check her out. You better look at her. Now, they both testified that, no, I didn't take that serious in January. But then when they backed up and put it together about how angry she was, about her shaking to the point where she has never seen that angry before. If anybody knows you, your best friend knows you. Now, they may get up and say he's not our best friend. But guess what? Did anybody sit right here and contradict Chastain and Mertz's testimony that they were her friend and her best friend? No. So that's the evidence that you have to work with. Her best friend called the police on her. Now let's talk about these surveillance videos. You heard a lot of talk about the surveillance videos didn't cover the stairs to Cash's house. No. Generally, people have surveillance cameras to protect their own property. The lady in the alley, she had a camera in the front and the back of her house. Her camera wasn't to figure out who might go up Cash's stairs and kill her best friend, Mo Wilson. Her camera was for her own protection. It was on 18th Street, north. And to the east, on Maple, there was a couple of cameras. And those cameras point to the front of those people's house and their porches for their protection, not in the alley. Once again, they want you to look somewhere where the evidence is not. And when she left, You didn't see the Jeep. The reason you didn't see the Jeep is she left south in the alley. The camera was north and east. Remember further north, the camera caught the motorcycle going by? There was no camera. Now, I'm not suggesting that she knew that at all. I don't believe she did. Because if she did, I don't believe she'd been circling in that Jeep that whole time. But no, a camera didn't catch her leaving. The GPS, that Jeep put her there. Now, let's talk about this black Jeep. Remember initially when the 3 or 4 video people came up here? And I want you to split your mind down the middle. On the left side, all this noise I'm talking up here, they're going to be talking. On the right side, I want you to think about section 12 of your charge and what came from this witness statement. Now, initially, when those video people came about, you remember the cross-examination? Do you know how many black Jeeps in Austin? Do you know how many black Jeeps in the neighborhood? How do you know it's that black Jeep? How do you know it's a Jeep? Aren't there a lot of black SUVs? Well, the minute Daniel Portnoy comes up and takes that GPS out of her Jeep, and we see her at CarMax in her Jeep, now they switch gears to how do you know she was driving her Jeep? You see the rabbit holes they're going to try to send you down? First, it wasn't her Jeep. Then we got proof that it was her Jeep. And now she wasn't driving the Jeep. Now, I want you to look at your picture on the screen and think about one thing. At 9:17, track 100 of that Jeep, 2 minutes after that murder, just a few feet down that alley. Track 100 starts at 9:17. Now, this is not a true picture of 9:55 p.m. that night. I just wanted to show you this because you see Colin Strickland in that garage right there? That's exactly where he said he was at 9:55 p.m. or somewhere around that time when Kaitlyn Armstrong, the defendant, drove up from murdering Mo Wilson in that black Jeep. The same black Jeep that from our first 10 witnesses wasn't a black Jeep, wasn't her Jeep. And then the second set of witnesses, she wasn't in the Jeep. That same black Jeep that she was not in, drove up. And like Colin testified, he was in the driveway with the garage up when she showed up at 9:55. That takes away all these phantom people. You remember all that talk about how many people went to the house for this, that, and the other? Rabbit holes. Go back to section 12 in this chair. Did you give any testimony that anybody was driving that black Jeep, her black Jeep, with her phone? Now, Ms. Mazak, who did a wonderful job. All those text messages, all those things. They came back and made her say, Kaitlyn's phone, not Kaitlyn with her phone. To imply that someone may have stolen her Jeep, stolen her phone, and the geolocation put them in the same place. So whoever stole her Jeep and stole her phone, they was running side by side. But check this out. Whoever stole her phone and was in her Jeep sent somebody a text message with her home address from that phone that they stole that was not in her possession, if you believe that. And that same person who had Kaitlyn Armstrong, the defendant's phone, sent Colin Strickland a text message about a lawsuit that they had going on with some real estate issues. So if she didn't have her phone, whoever stole her Jeep and her phone was also interested in her lawsuit and where she lived, if you believe that. And there's no evidence to suggest that it was anybody other than her. And finally, that same phone said she had to run errands earlier, and she texted Colin saying "Fini," which I think means finished. So whoever had her phone, if it wasn't her, they were finished running their errands just like she was. See, the more I talk, the more ridiculous it gets that it wasn't her with that Jeep and that phone. Now, they talked about Pam Mazak, that GPS, they asked her 3 or 4 times, is GPS more accurate than CDR data? She said yes. Now, remember when Portnoy was there, they kept talking about how GPS wasn't accurate. 2 days later, Mazak get there. Now, GPS is more accurate than CDR, isn't it? We agree, it's accurate, because it puts her Jeep at the scene, puts it there at 8:40, has it leaving about 9:17, and has it driving up at her home at 9:50. Her Jeep, her GPS, pulled out of her car at CarMax. And the DNA on the bike puts her at the scene. Proof that Kaitlyn was there when Mo Wilson was shot. Gunshots at 9:15. Jeep parked in the alley, leaves after the gunshots. Kaitlyn's DNA on the bike. Shell casings that matched the gun. And like Detective Ramirez said, it was personal. So she shot her in the heart as she's all on the ground based on the exit of that bullet. Now, when the defense expert got up there, he said 3 times, and I'm like, whoa. DNA tells us who was there. I agree. That's their expert, not ours. Our expert was more cautious talking about the ratio. He said DNA tells us who was there. And I agree. She was there. We'll go to this evidence real quickly. The video evidence shows us that Kaitlyn was circling 1708 maybe about an hour. Shows us her Jeep in the alley 1 minute before Mo unlocked the door. Cell phone corroborates the GPS. Has all those personal messages. DNA evidence, Dr. Caliphate talks about tertiary and quaternary or whatever that 4th level is transfer, never seen it. And the evidence from Samantha Perkins that it's 224 billion times more likely that the DNA included Kaitlyn Armstrong as opposed to somebody else. Now, you've heard a lot of testimony about that 3rd profile. Could have been anybody. Could have been a mechanic. Could have been an airport person. It could have been anybody's DNA. So don't let them go down that rabbit hole, and that's the real killer, some kind of grassy knoll theory, because you know what that doesn't explain? That 3rd person DNA? It doesn't explain Kaitlyn Armstrong's DNA on that bike. That's what it doesn't, unless she took somebody with her. So don't go down the rabbit hole, because there's no evidence that any 3rd person did that. And look at all the other evidence and just use your common sense. Steve Aston, very confident that Kaitlyn Armstrong's 6 Sauer P365 is the gun that killed Mo Wilson. And the GPS has us circling for an hour before, tracks her the whole time. Undisputed from the witness stand. I talked about this. You didn't see her exit route because she went a different way than where the cameras was. Mid-South. This is a race that she had just won, one of her recent races. Mo Wilson is a 25-year-old prodigy. Everybody in the cycling community that testified kind of shook their head about how good she was, and she was new at it. A prodigy. Taken from Matt and Mr. and Miss Wilson at the age of 25. Kaitlyn Cash over there on the front row. When I talked to her, call me Cash. Kaitlyn killed my friend. That's why we call her Cash. Kaitlyn with a C. Poor thing don't even like her own name anymore. She pumped her friend's heart over 100 times. You heard it on the 911 call. For 10 minutes until the first responders got there. Not knowing she'd probably been dead for 45 minutes. Then she runs to Costa Rica, had plastic surgery, on the beach teaching yoga while the Wilsons are trying to pick up the pieces. The state has met its burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I think we climbed past that mountain and climbed Mount Everest. Overwhelming. Now, they're about to get up here and send you down a bunch of rabbit holes. I ask you to do me one favor. The tools of a prodigy. She's about to set the world on fire. So don't do me a favor. Do Mo Wilson a favor. And I got one last thing to say to you. Get your notepad. Write a line down the middle of it. If you don't have a notepad, use a notepad in your brain. And when they get up here, do something for me, but do it for Mo. When they say something and singing out a rabbit hole, write it on the left side. If it's proven from the evidence chair, pursuant to paragraph 12 of your charge, write it on the right side of your paper. And we've been here a long time, but we ain't got to stay much longer, because when you get to the back, I submit you that when you separate the left side of the paper from the right side of the paper, it's going to be blank. And we can get out here pretty quickly and find her guilty of shooting Mo Wilson in the heart and in the head and taking away this prodigy at the age of 25. Don't think about closure. Don't think about none of that. Don't think about the community. That's not your burden. Your burden is to follow the law. I only ask you to do one thing. Justice for Mo Wilson. The state has met its burden. I'm asking you to find her guilty. And don't let her run like she'll have to do 19 days before this trial. Thank you.
Morning, folks. The state bears the burden of proof, and so the district attorney speaks first in opening and closing argument, and then they speak last. My name is Mr. Kofer. It's been a privilege to represent Kaitlyn Armstrong. I'll visit with you a little bit, and then my colleague, Mr. Purrier, will visit with you. When we sit down, Mr. Gonzalez will have the opportunity to speak with you. 1 year, 4 months, and 12 days. That is how long Kaitlyn Armstrong has asserted her innocence. And from day one, she asked for this trial. She asked for you to hear this case. You have all done extraordinary work. This is a difficult case. It is an emotional case. It could appear to be an easy case. For those 1 year, 4 months, and 12 days, Kaitlyn Armstrong has been trapped in a nightmare of circumstantial evidence. How do you go about disproving a negative? The government has presented you the government's case. To meet the government's burden, there is a lot of sizzle. There's not much steak. It's case based on assumptions. It's based on confirmation bias and a lack of direct evidence. Let us talk about the case against Kaitlyn Armstrong. It starts with jealousy. Jealousy is suspicion of someone's unfaithfulness in a relationship. And jealousy is a type of insecurity. We know that Colin Strickland fostered insecurity, and he has become the new poster child for Peter Pan syndrome in Austin, Texas. So what is the evidence that Kaitlyn Armstrong is a jealous psycho? Colin was not honest with Kaitlyn about his special friend in Colorado. And Kaitlyn allegedly sent him a photograph of that friend. The implication being, number one, perhaps she had been looking at his phone, and number two, that she's crazy and jealous because when he was sneaking off to Colorado to meet up with the person sending him inappropriate photographs, she had the temerity to not like it. Kaitlyn called Mariah Wilson once in October 2021. The text messages introduced into evidence show you that she had immediately before been in conversation through those messages with Colin about the location of her helmet. Probably it wasn't a phone call about the helmet. Let's be real. Probably it was a phone call, something to the extent of, by the by, Colin Strickland is a little bit of an ass, and I live with him. Is that so unreasonable? Is that insane? Kaitlyn also had the chutzpah to send Colin a snarky text message when there was an Instagram story of Colin in a photograph with Mariah Wilson, undisputed. Kaitlyn texted, "Give my regards to Mo." That doesn't make a murderer. It's possible that Kaitlyn viewed Colin's text messages, undoubtedly. Just as Colin testified from the witness stand that Colin had done the exact same thing in past relationships. You 14, and the 12 of you who will decide this case, are a relatively unique species in Travis County. You are a diverse jury. You are a diverse jury of age, of gender, of experiences, and of race. That is uncommon in this county. I want you to bring that diversity of life experience into your deliberations. I want you to look out at this assembled audience. And I want you to wonder, because generations are different. This morning, someone advised me of a new app the kids are on, Flip. Hadn't heard of it until this morning. Young people communicate a little bit differently, but I would bet you every penny that I am worth that at least one of you has looked at your partner's text messages at some point. And I would bet you everything that I'm worth and him that that's true of a number of the people that are in this audience. And the younger they are, the more common it is, because jealousy is a fundamentally human emotion, because it is about lack of trust in a relationship. But we know what Mr. Strickland shared with us about Kaitlyn Armstrong, that in October of 2021, when Colin Strickland was having his short relationship with Mariah Wilson, that Kaitlyn Armstrong was on dating apps, that Kaitlyn Armstrong was dating other people. We know that Colin Strickland told you that at the cyclocross events in Bentonville, Arkansas, in January of 2022, that Kaitlyn didn't appear to him jealous in any way. Nothing remarkable about her behavior to him. And in fact, we know that he shared that, yes, he'd had a long-standing sexual relationship with professional cyclist and woman, Amity Rockwell, and that Kaitlyn was friends with Amity Rockwell, that Kaitlyn had never expressed anything approaching jealousy or negative emotions about Amity Rockwell. Mariah Wilson was not the first cycling woman in Colin's life. Colin hid his relationship with Mariah Wilson into 2022. He did that because he didn't want to be honest about it. He doesn't like emotions. He likes what he wants and what's important to him. He was breadcrumbing. I think you know what that is. He was leaving his options open. He just didn't want to get caught. He didn't lie because Kaitlyn was a jealous psycho killer. He lied because that's how he approaches life. That's how he approaches women. He's a professional cyclist and an amateur liar. Well, what did Colin Strickland say about Kaitlyn, though? He said the relationship was not volatile. Kaitlyn was not a particularly jealous girlfriend. He shared he'd had girlfriends in the past before Kaitlyn, and that Kaitlyn was not jealous like those other past girlfriends. Who brought up jealousy first? Austin Police Department Detective Richard Spittler. On May 12th, mere 12 hours after the murder of Mariah Wilson, when Detective Spittler interviewed Colin Strickland, who first said that J word, Richard Spittler, because it was a great theory. And what a convenient narrative. What a wonderful and easy way to paint a woman and to tell a story. The woman scorned. Whether the facts met the narrative or not, it's a great story. The truth of the matter is that Kaitlyn's emotions and her actions were normal and routine and human. But she had to be portrayed as a jealous psycho to create the motive. The problem, however, in Colin and Kaitlyn's relationship was not Mariah Wilson. The problem was always Colin Strickland. However, Colin's behavior does not make sense. Colin changed Mariah Wilson's name in his phone on May 11th. Colin deleted his text exchange with Mariah Wilson on May 11th. What was different about May 11th? Why did he do that on May 11th? He felt he needed an alibi. Why that day? Jealousy. But what about the black Jeep? You know exactly where and exactly when that Jeep traveled. There is not a doubt that Kaitlyn's cell phone was on her person between about 5:30 p.m. and at least 7:30 p.m. on May 11th. There's no dispute whatsoever as to that. And there is no doubt of any type that Kaitlyn's cell phone was in the vicinity of the black Jeep. Was Kaitlyn in the black Jeep? Who had access to the black Jeep? Who had access to the key fob to the black Jeep? Who had access to the key bowl containing that fob that drives the black Jeep? Who previously owned a black SUV? Pam Mazak presented you a compelling PowerPoint, animation, details. PowerPoint presentations in criminal cases like this are a lot like swimsuits. What they reveal is interesting. What they hide is what's essential. It's real easy to look at the animation that Pam Mazak provided and see dot, 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 call, detail, record, timestamp, dot, 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 dot. And then to see infotainment, track log, dot, dot, dot. And if you don't review the data, if you take it on the word of a PowerPoint animation, it's really easy to look at it and go, the phone was in the car and it was riding together. There is a very, very good reason that you were shown a PowerPoint and that you were not presented the data. When you return to the room back there to deliberate, ask for the PowerPoint, ask for the actual data. The problem isn't the data in your heads. The problem is the presentation of it. Because what you'll see, if you actually look at the data, is that you were left with an impression that is not true. Look at the timestamp on the call detail records compared to the infotainment. And you're going to see a lag. And sometimes you'll see an advancement. And what you'll see is that while it is undisputed that the phone was in the vicinity of the black Jeep, you'll see that there is zero conclusive evidence that phone actually was in the black Jeep. What you will see, though, is some really peculiar movement of the black Jeep. Peculiar movement that Pam Mazak completely skipped over. When that vehicle is heading northbound on Lamar and stops near an area called Spa 7, where maybe somebody had an appointment, or maybe not, you're going to see some very strange movement of the data within a parking garage. And you might wonder why that car may have gone up and down inside a parking garage, and why when the car is moving inside a parking garage, the phone is not in that parking garage. The phone is inside of a building. What about all those other vehicles? What about Colin's mom's car? What about the Mercedes? What about the trucks? What about the half dozen odd vehicles? Did Kaitlyn Armstrong have access to vehicles that weren't the black Jeep? Absolutely. Did she drive vehicles that weren't the black Jeep? Absolutely. But wait, Rick Kofer. Colin said, I saw her get out of the black Jeep. But that's not what he said. The first time he testified in front of you, a few weeks ago, it was a Friday, he said that's what I believe. He was real hesitant. He wasn't rock solid. Then he had a weekend to think. And he came back and he continued to testify in front of you on Monday. And somehow his memory and recollection of every detail in this case had become fuzzier between Friday and Monday over the weekend, except for his opinion about seeing Kaitlyn come out of a black Jeep. And when he sat on the witness stand and testified yesterday, somehow all of his recollections had become even fuzzier still, except that he claimed he saw Kaitlyn Armstrong come out of a black Jeep. How amazing that the one fact that he seemed to remember with greater clarity over time was the single fact that drew attention away from him and pointed the finger at Kaitlyn Armstrong. We're to believe this, that that's what he said, that that's what he actually saw. From Colin. Colin, with his marked lack of interest in Kaitlyn's life. Colin, who on May 12th said that Kaitlyn had arrived home mere moments after he texted her at 9:21 p.m., 6 minutes after the killing of Mariah Wilson. Colin, who couldn't recall a single detail about Kaitlyn's behavior that night. That does not make sense. And Colin may have had other reasons for saying what he did. Remember, Richard Spittler did not believe that Colin was truthful and forthcoming. What about those guns? Colin bought those guns. Colin told her to train with the gun. And she did once. and she was totally normal. I asked the witness, Jill, did Kaitlyn seem all murdery? No. Now, the prosecution led with a video of her at the gun range. Raise your hand in the audience if you've ever been to a gun range or ever held a firearm. Did you kill anyone? It's emotional, it's compelling, but that's a rabbit hole. That's a smokescreen. But what's peculiar is that Colin sat up here on the witness stand and said, oh yeah, no, that cable lock for the gun, yeah, that was mine. I have no idea where the second cable lock came from. He had no problem admitting that he owned a cable lock before buying guns. He had no problem admitting that he owned a red cable lock on a Smith & Wesson, which appears unaffiliated with this case. But when confronted with the evidence, I have no idea where this black cable lock on the black Sig Sauer came from. And when we invited him to come and demonstrate to you, to stand here, to show you how a cable lock works, suddenly Colin Strickland, engineering degree, Colin Strickland repairs and sells Spartan motorhome trailers. Colin Strickland, the mechanically sophisticated man, suddenly he has 10 thumbs, and I don't know how this works. Bullshit. He wasn't straight with you. He knew exactly what that cable lock was, and he knows exactly how it works. And the reason that he was blowing smoke to you is because he did not want you to see that the usage of a cable lock is no easy feat. To rack the slide, to eject the magazine, to then replace it. And so Colin wanted to leave you with the impression, oh, I don't know. The black, I have no idea. The thing from the murder, I don't know. And yet somehow Kaitlyn Armstrong, who it appears at best, had in her life held a gun one time, somehow knew to use, to remove and then reattach the cable lock. When you heard from Jill from the witness stand, Kaitlyn didn't have any experience with that. When they went to the gun range at Colin's direction, there was no cable lock. How did the cable lock get on the gun? Colin says he didn't do it. We know Kaitlyn didn't do it because Jill said so. That does not make sense. But Rick, what about the DNA, Rick? Kaitlyn cannot be excluded as a potential contributor to a DNA swab from Mariah Wilson's bike, period, full stop. A swab from the handlebars and from the seat of that bike. I am no DNA expert. None of y'all are either. We heard from several of them. I don't know. I know that there's transfer DNA. I know that there can be lab contamination. I know that there was a lot of conversation about helmets and who wore what helmet and when they wore it, and if we know who wore the helmet when and this and that, or did Colin put on a black motorcycle jacket as he discussed with Richard Spittler on the way from Kaitlyn Cash's apartment to Deep Eddy and Poolberger? Would that black jacket have his DNA? And then if Mariah would with Kaitlyn and the, I don't know, you will make of that what you will. But the upshot is this: there are two realities. Schrodinger's cat. Either Kaitlyn Armstrong was there, and that's why there's DNA that was found on that bike, or at least that she cannot be excluded, blah, blah, blah. Or a person wearing gloves had their hands on a driving steering wheel that had Kaitlyn's DNA. Or Mariah Wilson had touched the same bike, or the same helmet, or the black jacket. I don't know. But I do know one thing. Every person that handled this bike handled it in the same way. It was arm day at the gym this morning, and this is still really easy because this is how you pick up this bike. But what the government and the police would like you to believe is that after a brutal slaying, that the way, and see how this tire is arranged, that the way then, Kaitlyn Armstrong would have, I guess, wanted to hold the bike like this, that does not make sense. Everyone held it this way. And what's astounding, and this is what you heard from the APD expert, right here, on this portion of the bike frame, this was the area not swabbed for DNA. Why not? It was more appropriate for latent prints. Could you have swabbed for DNA? Absolutely. Why didn't you? It was more appropriate for latent prints. No DNA here, but why would anyone that doesn't make sense. But what about the missing DNA analysis? No analysis of any DNA from that bike frame. What about the swabs taken from the black Jeep? You heard testimony. DNA swabs were taken from inside the black Jeep. Never tested. Why? Why not? Why leave it to chance? What if it had shown yet another unknown profile? How inconvenient. We do know, as a fact, unknown DNA profile on the seat, unknown DNA profile on these handlebars, unknown DNA profile on the gun. That does not make sense. Austin American Statesman got it right. There's mystery DNA. And there's one more source of DNA that was never tested. The rape kit. The truth of the matter is, Austin Police Department did not want a single piece of evidence in front of you that might point away from Kaitlyn Armstrong. They didn't want any evidence that could potentially be inconsistent with their version of the case. And that's why the black swabs from the Jeep, or the DNA swabs from the black Jeep were never tested. And that's why the rape kit was never tested. Rick, what about the police interrogation? We saw her on the video for 11 minutes. She looked cold. She looked bad. She looked like a killer. Imagine that your boyfriend has just been contacted by 2 homicide detectives and told to come down to homicide. And that not but 60, 90 minutes later, additional law enforcement arrives, tactical vests, guns. You're under arrest. What am I under arrest for? Don't know, can't tell you. And then you're taken down to be interrogated, put in a room with Katie Connor, who may not be the worst homicide detective I've ever seen, but is certainly in the running. And told, oh yeah, you're under arrest on this warrant. I couldn't tell you a thing about it. I don't really know. Oh, is someone knocking? No, no one's knocking. Oh no, I think they're knocking. Kidding. Our bad. You're good to go. Hey, your boyfriend and the. What would you do? How would you respond? Don't you think you'd be a little confused? Rick, come on, Costa Rica. What are you, an idiot? Come on. She ran. She ran. Only a guilty person would run. Are you a fool, Rick Kofer? And yet you heard testimony that Kaitlyn was told by the Austin Police Department, free to go, ma'am. And when she went to New York, free as a bird, just like any of the 14 of you. And when she booked that ticket for Costa Rica, when she drove to Newark Airport, when she got on a plane bound for San Jose, what did Richard Spittler tell you? That the murder warrant that he had gotten about 10:30 p.m. on May 17th, 2022, had not been entered into TCIC and CIC. At the moment she bought that ticket, at the moment she was on the way to the airport, on the moment she got there, when that plane was taken off, there was no way in the world that Kaitlyn Armstrong could have had any awareness or knowledge in any way whatsoever that there was a warrant for her arrest. But we do know that Kaitlyn Armstrong routinely traveled internationally. We know that she routinely traveled internationally with little notice. There were multiple witnesses who testified to that. And we know that she did it related to her yoga. Was she scared? What do you think? Do you think that she may have been concerned a little bit that her boyfriend had killed someone? Or if not that whoever killed Mariah Wilson might want to kill Kaitlyn Armstrong next? Or that this might have been connected to the vandalism, the unexplained vandalism outside her house? Fear. Fear results in fight or flight. And it was flight. And she certainly was afraid, and that's a reasonable conclusion you can draw. Rick, a couple of weeks ago, she ran away. They took her to a medical appointment and she ran away. Guilty. Why are we even here? Terrified woman, fearful woman, in jail, abused, injured, someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
There's been no testimony about the things he's talking about now.
I'm moving
He can
on.
twist the evidence any way he wants to, but he can't try to add new evidence.
That's the case against Kaitlyn, right? Isn't that what it boils down to? Did I miss any of the big points? Isn't that where we're at, that circumstantial evidence case? It's a simple case. It's an easy story. It's a beautifully simple story, but it's wrong. And it's based on assumptions of gender and of motive and a bias toward confirmation. And who got to investigate this? Richard Spittler on his first homicide. Why test a rape kit? Why would I need Colin's laptop? I looked through it. I mean, sure, I've got no background in digital forensics, but I looked through it. It seemed fine to me. Let's return it to Colin. One single solitary piece of physical evidence has been removed from this case. Colin Strickland's laptop. Why was Richard Spittler so eager to get Colin's laptop back to him? Why does Colin get treated differently than everyone else? What about Colin's iPad? Why was it never seized? Why was it never extracted? Why didn't Richard Spittler bother to contact or investigate any potential suspect until months and months after he had issued an arrest warrant for Kaitlyn Armstrong? He calls Alan Lim, a putative lover of Mariah Wilson. He calls Gunnar Shaw. Surely he did that in the days after the murder. No, he did it in July. And he did it, as he said, because he doesn't know what the defense is going to pull. Guess what? Alan Lim didn't kill Mariah Wilson. Gunnar Shaw didn't kill Mariah Wilson. Did Richard Spittler know that on May 17th? Nope. He didn't even know their names. That was the level of his investigation. The vandalism, the video that you saw yesterday, where Richard Spittler is energetically taking notes, what happened to those notes? Where Colin Strickland is showing the photographs of that vandalism, what happened to those photographs? Richard Spittler thought so little of it that he violated Texas law, that he refused to provide this district attorney's office that report. He refused to conduct a single scintilla of investigation. Why? That didn't really fit the narrative, did it? So why look into it? Why would it matter? He didn't test the DNA from the black Jeep, but he did go and get an arrest warrant based on hearsay and innuendo and anonymous phone calls. He didn't even bother to watch the 11-minute interview of Kaitlyn and Katie Connor. He claimed that there was a NIBIN investigative lead when there was none. But we know one thing, he testified he knew Colin from before. What a world to be treated like Colin Strickland has. So what happened here? Police think Kaitlyn committed this crime. They don't know. She fits their story. She fits the story they created, a spurned, jealous lover. That story is so easy. That story is so easy to tell because it ties into a framework of patriarchy and misogyny that is rooted in American culture. Humans want to know answers. We don't want a mystery. That's part of why wrongful convictions occur. Michael Morton, Greg Kelly, what exonerated them? DNA. So if Kaitlyn Armstrong did not kill Mariah Wilson, who did? I don't know. What a terrible answer. A much better lawyer than me, Bill Fitzgerald, was asked that same question in the Michael Morton trial. If Michael didn't kill Christine Morton, who did? His answer, I don't know. And the reason that answer is so unsatisfying to you is because we as humans demand closure. We demand explanation. A mystery ruins it. And someone had to sit in 30 years in prison before the real killer of Christine Morton was found. And then that chapter was closed. But we do know a few things. We know what Colin Strickland actually said, that he considered Kaitlyn to be an incredibly kind, caring, and sweet person, that Kaitlyn had only shown absolute above and beyond examples of human compassion and thoughtfulness and care and going far out of her way to help others. Colin said, Kaitlyn is a mild and gentle person. Colin said, Kaitlyn is not a particularly needy person. Colin said he could not imagine Kaitlyn hurting anyone. Kaitlyn had never done anything violent in her life, according to Colin Strickland. Kaitlyn had never been violent, says Colin. How did Colin sum her up? Kaitlyn was a softie. So what happened? Anyone could have entered that unlocked apartment. Why was it unlocked? Mariah Wilson locked the door to Kaitlyn Cash's apartment when she left to go out with Colin. She knew how to lock it. She did not lock the door when she returned. Was she expecting Colin to come back? Was she expecting someone else? We will never know. Detective Spittler, Detective Connor, the Austin Police Department flubbed this case. But I guarantee you one thing. If you convict Kaitlyn Armstrong and she's eventually exonerated, you'll know right now the basis of it. Untested DNA.
That is inappropriate argument. That is inappropriate argument to the jury. To somehow imply that they might make a mistake and come back home. That is improper to put that kind of pressure on them.
I have no further argument.
The objection sustained, the jury will disregard that remark.
Mr. Purrier will join you now.
I don't know. I don't know. A guilty verdict, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, means putting the I don't knows that you have in a box, moving them aside, and pretending they don't exist. The I don't knows that you have are something you need to start thinking about. This is the time to do it. Those I don't knows are important. I don't know why Cash's apartment was unlocked. I don't know that. I don't know why Mo was clutching a black baseball cap 45 minutes after she got home. I don't know that. I don't know why Colin lied. And I don't know why he lied about lying. I don't know that. I don't know why Detective Richard Spittler didn't test the sexual assault kit. I don't know that. And I don't know why he didn't test the swabs from the black Jeep. I don't know that. And you don't either. And that is the whole point of this trial, is that those I don't knows are important. And it's easy to disregard those I don't knows. It is easy to swipe those off the table, right? And just accept Detective Spittler's version of what happened, just to accept that narrative, right? That's the easy thing to do. But while jury service, the service that you're doing right now, is a privilege, it's also a duty. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not easy. It's difficult. But that's why you're here. That's why you're here, and you're here, and you're here, and you're here. Because way back, weeks ago, when we were talking in jury selection, we observed you to be thinkers. We observed you to be gripped with the courage to ask the tough questions. We observed you to be willing to set aside your basic assumptions about what it means to be accused of a criminal offense. That's why you're here. And it's not easy. It is difficult to ask those tough questions. That is difficult. To address those I don't knows. That is difficult. But that is why you're here. Let's talk about DNA. You heard from at least 3 experts about DNA, and you heard a lot of different perspectives about what DNA is, what it means. But one thing that they all agreed on is this. DNA means that a clump of cells was found in the exact spot that they were collected from. That is what DNA means. And we have a tendency to mythologize DNA, right? From what we see on TV, from what we see in the movies. We have a tendency to mythologize it, to put it on a pedestal as meaning something that it doesn't. DNA is an artifact, just plain and simple. Now, I think what you've seen, despite what Dr. Calfett told you yesterday in court, is that it doesn't confer a crystal ball on anyone. It doesn't confer on anyone a time machine, the ability to go back in time, like a Christmas story, to revisit things that happened from an observer standpoint and be able to create a narrative from it. It is not scientifically defensible. It's just not. The state's own expert, Samantha Perkins, testified that you can't fabricate the kind of narrative, the kind of probabilities that Dr. Calfett wanted you to believe he can create in his mind, simply from the presence of DNA. All DNA is an artifact. That's it. That is the scientifically defensible position to take. Now, Dr. Calfett wanted to take it a step farther, right? To write the script for you, that is not scientifically defensible. And their expert acknowledged that. It's just not. Ballistics, let's talk about that. Now, I think despite the length of the testimony, Steve Aston and Bill Tobin, I think, agree on a lot of things. There's a lot of overlap in the position that they take. Now, Bill didn't get up here and tell you that it's junk science, that it's ridiculous, that it's preposterous, and bring a bunch of conspiracy theories to you. No, he didn't take that position at all. In fact, he worked at the FBI. He worked side by side with those examiners for more than 20 years. He wasn't here to tell you that it's just junk science, that it's completely unbelievable. Quite the opposite. That's what you heard. And I'm going to disagree with the state's characterization of his answer on that last question. He didn't say, I absolutely agree with Steve Aston. I absolutely agree with his opinion. Sure. 4 hours wasted. If that was his opinion, it would have lasted 5 minutes. That wasn't his opinion, and you're smart enough to recognize that. His opinion was Steve Aston is entitled to his opinion. He's entitled to tell you what he thinks it is. He doesn't agree with it. But it's a subjective science. It differs from person to person. Of course he's entitled to his opinion. Every firearms examiner has their own opinion. It is subjective. That's the whole point. That was the whole point of his testimony. He didn't doubt Mr. Aston's ability to make very experienced observations about tiny lines that may be present on shell casings, on bullets, on projectiles. But just like their DNA expert, Dr. Calfett, Steve Aston wants to take it a step farther, to go beyond the science, right? To be able to say, this gun fired this bullet, this gun ejected this shell casing. To make it say things that it doesn't say. Mr. Tobin recognized the limitations of what ballistic science, what firearms and tool marks examination can say. And what is that? That based on Mr. Aston's examination, it is consistent with being ejected from that gun. That it was possibly the source of the fired cartridge casings, possibly. And guess what? That is exactly the language that you'll see in the DNA report. That it can't be excluded. That it is possibly the source of those shell casings. That it's possibly the source of those projectiles. Now, Mr. Aston wants to take it a step farther and say, this is it. We got it. That is not scientifically defensible. Now, I know what you're going to say. Mr. Purrier, you guys paid Mr. Tobin to come in here and say all those things. He's a hired gun, right? Fine. Don't take his word for it. Disregard everything he said. Disregard his opinions. Take that off the table. But I'll be real with you folks, I don't have the juice or the disposable income to convince two separate groups of the most preeminent scientists the United States has to offer who agreed with his position. I don't have it. I wished I did. I don't have the pull or the ability to go back in time to 2015 and talk to President Barack Obama and convince him of his legitimate concerns for the limitations, the reasonable limitations we can put on that field of forensic science, who had concerns about setting boundaries for the kind of unqualified, reckless opinions that Mr. Aston offered you in court. I don't have that ability. Now, I can tell you that our president back in 2015 had those concerns. I can tell you that those groups of scientists had the opinion that individualization, that ability that Mr. Aston claims to have is not supportable by relevant science. That was the opinion of the brightest minds, brightest scientific minds this nation has to offer us. That was their opinion. Don't take Bill Tobin's word for it, but you can trust that group. Now, he has a job. Steve Aston has a job because he claims he has that ability to come in here to court and say, this gun fired these bullets, right? That's why he has a job. There's not a detective or a DA's office in Texas that has any value for an examiner that's going to come in and say, this gun is consistent with a production lot of 2,000 other guns that could be the source of those bullets and casings. Not a one, right? His testimony is consistent with keeping his job. Testimony like that isn't what the police want to hear. Let's talk about Kaitlyn's interview. Why she reacted the way she did, why she requested an attorney. How much trust would Kaitlyn have in the competence or professionalism of the Austin Police Department after that experience on May 12th? She's arrested on a silly minor charge in front of her house, in her neighborhood, dragged into the station. Then she's escorted into a room and she's told, we need to read you your rights. It's a very important situation. She's never read her rights. And then they come in and say, oops, sorry. No warrant, just kidding. But hey, stick around for a few minutes. And then they come back later on and say, oops, we goofed again. Turns out you do have a warrant. How much trust would you have in their competence? Put yourself in her situation. If that's me in that room, I'm looking around for game show cameras. Is this a joke? This can't be real. That is what you heard. But what else did Katie Connor tell you? That Kaitlyn on that day, the day that she left for New York City, the day that she left for Costa Rica, she was as free as you or I or Detective Katie Connor to fly across the country, to fly out of the country, right? That's what you heard. So it's easy to say she fled. It's easy to say that. That is not what the evidence supports. She was perfectly able to go anywhere she wanted to. And from a deeply ingrained primal place in our brains, when faced with fear, when faced in a stressful situation, like my colleague said, what do? It's fight or flight. That attempt to retreat, to find a safe place, to find a place of comfort. And she's not alone in that. Colin did the same thing. Colin went to his dad's house. That's a place that I felt safe. That's a place that I felt comfortable. That's a place that I felt good. That's a natural reaction. And it's easy to say, well, I would have done something different. It's easy to project what you would have done on somebody else. We all react differently to stressful situations. Now, I want to talk to you about some other things that we talked about. Do we believe that David Harris killed Mo Wilson? No, we don't. Of course not. The point is, there was no investigation into him at all because Detective Spittler had tunnel vision and he jumped to conclusions. Now, the government wanted to imply that this is a red herring, a rabbit's trail, a smoke screen, to ask any questions of Detective Spittler about the failures of his investigation. that you should just disregard all of those things.
Excuse me, council. I think some of our jurors have urgent needs, so we're gonna take a brief recess.
Yes, Your Honor.
And just review where we are right now.
Yes, Your Honor.
We'll be in recess for 15 minutes, maybe. You all take care of things.
Thank you.